All right, this is the Public Art Advisory Committee, Monday, February 27th, 2023 at 4:30 p.m. This meeting is compliant with the Ralph M. Brown Act as amended by California Assembly Bill number 361, effective September 16th, 2021, providing for a public health emergency exception to the standard teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. The purpose of this is to provide a safe environment for the public, staff, and committee members while allowing for public participation. Accordingly, the public may observe committee meetings and or address the committee using remote public comment options or have the option to attend the committee meetings in person. Please be advised that committee members may continue to participate in the meetings remotely. Committee may take action on any items listed in the agenda. To join in person, we are located at 50 Park Place, Brisbane in the large conference room. To join virtually, you may join this Zoom webinar. In-person participation to address the committee on any item on or not on the posted agenda. Please wait until public comments are being accepted. Remote participation, members of the public may participate in the committee meeting by logging into the Zoom webinar. The agenda materials may be viewed online at www.brisbaneca.org at least 72 hours prior to a meeting. Remote public comments. Meeting participants are encouraged to submit public comments in writing in advance of the meeting. Aside from commenting while in the Zoom meeting, the following email line will be monitored during the meeting, and public comments received will be noted for the record at aibera@brisbaneca.org. All right. Roll call.
Yep, roll call.
Mayor Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Cunningham. Chair Davis.
Here.
Vice Chair Salmon.
Here.
Park and Recreation Commissioner Greenlee.
Here.
Park and Recreation Commissioner Sewell.
Here.
Move on to approval of the agenda. Motions. Second.
Roll call vote. Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Chair Davis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Salmon.
Aye.
Park and Recreation Commissioner Greenlee.
Aye.
Park and Recreation Commissioner Sewell.
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to approval of the minutes from November 21st, 2022, Public Art Advisory Committee. Do I have a motion to approve that?
Am I allowed to approve?
Yeah.
I was here, yes,
Yes.
approve.
Okay. Second.
Second. In favor? Oh, roll call. Go ahead.
Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Abstain.
Chair Davis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Salmon.
Abstain.
Park and Recreation Commissioner Greenlee.
Aye.
Park and Recreation Commissioner Sewell.
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to presentations and discussion items. Item B, receive a review of AB 2449 in-person rules beginning March 1st, 2023.
Yeah, so Ingrid is supposed to be joining us. Yeah, so Kevin's here. Okay, well, we can review it. I guess.
Should we go to the next item and come back?
Would that be okay, Chair?
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to item C. Debrief and takeaways from past interviews with representatives from Belmont, San Diego, South San Francisco, Berkeley, and Pasadena. So at this time, I thought it would be good to review those that we kind of discussed, the interviews we had. And maybe make notes of, committee members can make notes or bring up ideas. So we have some criteria, I think, to go by based on the interviews that we have on how we want to go forward and looking for a consultant and what kind of guidelines that resonated with us in those interviews. So I'm just going to go around the room. Probably I'll just go clockwise. I'll start with Lisa and then I'll just call on you. And if you don't have anything, we can circle back on things that you recall or looking at back at some of the notes that we have on. There are some notes here on the virtual meeting in the packet.
Great.
Thank you.
Can I have
just a minute to review?
Okay, that's fine. It says
Want a copy?
September 26th, that would have been, the Belmont, and then being on the backside is September 27th. I believe that was
Right.
San Diego. And then there were some notes on, Stewart's interview of phone calls with Pasadena and Berkeley. And then, some of the South San Francisco, which was the
Right.
most recent one that we had. So I thought before we went on further to, any other information, we should look at that. Or while we still have the committee members that are here, as there may be a transition, new ones coming and really have no idea what this is about. So. All right, so Karen, do you have any thoughts on that?
Just holistically, what I got collectively from all of the interview processes is that it wasn't really that much different. It was different for the cities because the cities were all different. And I was just thinking, would it behoove us to, for the RFP process, reach out to the people that they use? Since we tended to like the information that came back.
But wouldn't we need to put out a
general RFP?
yes, a general RFP and see who replies
You
to
can
that?
invite people to reply to.
Oh, yes, but I'm just saying, as opposed
Oh,
to
no.
thinking another
No, as part of that,
as part of that. Yes,
because we liked what they said, and
yes.
it's like, why don't we make sure we include the people they used
Some of the, I agree with that.
in our RFP?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have to say.
Okay,
I can.
Camille? Oh, okay.
No,
I'm
go ahead. Go ahead. Let's just go around.
I thought everything that we heard from everyone was very interesting, and it was different. For me, the most different one was South San Francisco. And it's because I think that the way that they're set up is a different kind of system of being set up, the way that their cultural arts committee is working. I think it's very different. They seem to be really involved in programming and using the citizens there, which I think we're looking for something maybe a little more broad based, not to say we're excluding citizens in possible projects and programs. But I think that they were a little more kind of, their focus was on that area. And they were still in the process, so they still weren't clear.
Right, but that was still doing things.
Yeah, and they were still doing things, which was interesting, but
Yeah.
they still weren't clear. I thought Belmont and Pasadena were the ones that I thought were the most engaging in terms of the way that they went through their process. I think they touched upon a lot of the points that we are very interested in, making sure community, the way they went about community involvement, the way that they put out their RFPs for art, that they had a vision. Those were interesting to me for those people.
Okay. Ron?
Well, I realize how lucky we are. We have the fewest number of residents and the biggest budget. Which is incredible. It's an incredible opportunity to be able to start from scratch here. I really like South City because they're kind of going through it like we are, and they have 60,000 people. I mean, I think we're a different animal, and I think we need to think about that as far as public inclusion and what we're doing. I think we're a lot, we have so many incredibly creative people here too. And the thing that came up last week with South City was the shows, and we have some new artwork in the room here, and everyone's like, wow, we haven't been thinking that way as far as like opening up houses and or Madhouse or any other galleries to actually do public showings. So if we're going to start small, that would be a great way to start. I am an advocate for starting small and keep learning from our mistakes and applying that to the master plan. I do see the relevance of the master plan now. And was something I was a little taken aback from at first. Why do we have to have it before we move on? Let's just move on. But I now believe in the master plan. So.
Thank you, Madison.
Oh, well, Barbara Goldstein's name kept coming up. So I think that that's, someone we may want to invite to apply in the future. I think it's interesting that seems like the lady who was working like the cultural arts sort of specific role,
Mhm.
she had been with the city with South San Francisco for a really long time. And it's only just now that they're getting at a master plan, which I thought was interesting that they've been, incorporating public art and they've been creating programs for what seems like maybe 2 decades or something, like quite a long amount of time before they've even gotten to this
That's-
place.
yeah.
So I feel like for us, sometimes I think that we're just like finding our sea legs still and we're trying to figure this process out, but we've arrived independently at wanting to move forward with a public art master plan so much earlier than a city like South City that has somebody specifically on staff for this type of thing. So I think that kind of really speaks to like our committee's commitment to getting this right and to have like a solid framework from which we can work from for implementing art in Brisbane. But I also think it speaks to like how you can move forward with things in the interim as well. Because clearly they've done it and it's been going well for them. And, in each of those iterations, in each of those projects, you learn something. And that helps inform the larger plan in place. So I think the exercise was really helpful for us as a committee. And I'm excited to see, where we go from here. So. Lisa?
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate what everyone said, but I do like the idea that South City was trying to nurture its local artists and trying to make opportunities for an arts community to happen in their city, because with large growth in the Bay Area, I think what made the Bay Area special, and I think what makes Brisbane special is our local artists, and I don't want to lose that. And I think that focusing part of our budget on nurturing that local artist culture would be really great. And I like how they did it. Go ahead.
I just a follow-up question to you. Is a local artist someone from Brisbane or is that somebody like in the area?
I think from Brisbane, just because we do have a pretty vibrant, let me put it this way. As an artist in the Bay Area and in Brisbane, it's very expensive to find space, to find venues, to find, privately to promote your own art, or to even get out and do art in a public way is expensive, hard, difficult, and it's getting harder and difficult just because of rampant growth and rents and, everything being towards making the most money out of, every inch of space in the whole area. And for the city to step in and say, we're going to make space for art. We're going to make space for art. That allows local people to, have space for art and show that it's happening, because that makes for a more interesting culture of the town. I mean, when artists move into a town, everything gets more interesting. That was always the local joke was, if you usually as artists, we don't have a lot of money, so we move into poor areas and then we fix it up and then they kick us out and nobody can afford to live there, right? Because we made it nice. And so I think that making art and allowing for spaces of local art and just nurturing the community, however we can do that. I think South City did that pretty well. And I like what they talked about, low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I think what we do is we latch onto an idea and think if it's not my idea, it's not a good idea. But I want to be open to all ideas. I want our park and rec to still be park and rec, but I want to try and take advantage of some stuff like getting students involved, getting seniors involved, and making some projects that are their own. And that's kind of the low hanging fruit that they were talking about, getting a mural class from Skyline to do a mural. I mean, That
was
kind of,
great.
that was just really great. And so, somebody mentioned that we learn from these projects. We start small, we learn from the projects, but get something done. And I'm looking forward to the master plan and having a framework that will really help guide us. But I do think that we could learn from South City and start with some low hanging fruit.
I would love to collaborate more with them, and it's so easy for us to go there and for them to come to us. It might be a great partnership for some
Yeah, we need,
competitions.
we need their schedule of, that's the one thing I did forget.
Schedule
They've
for-
got a schedule
Yeah.
of their art.
They're showing,
Exhibition.
they're
Oh, oh,
various
yeah.
exhibits.
Yeah,
Get that.
I think that would be really,
Yeah.
you know,
That-
something just came to mind when you were talking about that. Space for art, right? Space for art. We've got all of these new buildings. I'm just wondering if it's even a possibility that in some of our businesses, we could ask, are you interested in having local artists represented in your lobby?
Your comfort zone. That might also help because like those people have money, you know.
Yeah, and asking for, a venue for the artists to show their art, to sell their art, to be seen. It just, those kind of venues we can't buy,
It gives exposure to like clientele that, all these people in biotech, right? They have so much money. They could be sitting in their conference room and someone could really fall in love with a piece and be
I'll
willing
buy
to
them
spend-
all.
be willing to spend $1,400 and that could sustain some of our local artists.
Okay, hold on. I'd like to make some comments and then I'll circle back to everybody so everybody can have a chance to speak. What I would like to say is that the takeaway I had that I liked the most was Belmont because it was the most recent master plan that was actually complete. And that was the one that I got the most out of. And the community is very similar in size to ours. So I thought that was interesting. I was surprised that it was only $25,000. That was kind of shocking. And they did it during COVID. So I don't know how much community engagement they got. And it did sound like the projects that they did prior to their master plan was utility boxes and that kind of thing. So they got some things done, but it didn't sound like it was anything.
The sculptural garden.
Sculptural,
That
a sculptural garden.
They have light poles too at the soccer fields. Yeah.
So, and then San Diego, I didn't feel like I got a whole lot because I think that was a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old documented and the staff person wasn't around at that
Yeah,
time.
right.
The interesting thing that I recall on my notes is that the budget for San Diego is $350,000 a year. Christine Jones. And so, some of like a community like this is a full-time employee and they've got this budget that, that's funded by their city council in addition to maybe developer fees, but that's what they have. So that's very different than our community. The one takeaway that I do remember from that I thought it was interesting, that I think it's an important note, is when we asked on reflection, mistakes. One of the advices, it says, what piece of advice would you give? Art ownership can be thorny. Jones said to have an artist sign a transfer of title document and have the document notarized that the art is the property of the city. I think that may have also come up in the past also with Belmont. So I think that's a really important takeaway for us to remember,
There were a couple of points like that.
that we really need to recall these things because I don't know that would be automatic. Our consultant to necessarily put that in there.
That's the
What-
beauty of it, right?
South City, what I really liked for them is that they had this great timeline that they've used, that they came up with. I think their annual budget for that department, was it 50,000? South City's annual 80,000. Wait a minute, no, 80,000 was their consultant.
Yes.
That's what they paid. But they have a full-time staff person, which is their cultural arts person, and I forget how much is in that fund. It might have been 50. They budgeted 80,000, but they put aside 100. So I thought that was really interesting that they had a cushion, which I think is something to think about when we come up with, just so any fees that they didn't account for, that they already had that in their budget. And I can't remember, I want to say it's 50,000 was there. But anyways, I do like the timeline that they have on that, which was easy to follow. I thought it was interesting, the nice thing is that they're in the process. So we were able to ask a lot of questions and who they're using. I was also surprised that they've had so many community engagement projects, and it seems like they've only got feedback from 200 people out of a community of 60,000.
Yeah.
It seemed like a big problem to me.
Yeah.
They
Just-
they
it
had
just-
extensive outreach too, which was.
I just can't get over that number. Like,
That was a weird
like a
number.
day in the park kind of thing.
Yeah.
They've gone places, they try to contact the stakeholders. How is that possible? So
I thought it was a mistake, actually.
I would, I mean, I could.
like the way that you decided it was. She must have misunderstood.
I maybe see putting 200 for a community of 4,000, but 200 for 60.
Well, 200 responses, but that doesn't mean they didn't reach out to more people.
Right.
But you can
No,
reach
but the
out to
feedback-
everybody and.
Yeah, but if you only get that's the feedback that they got. So that was that.
I have the same
I
problem.
thought that was problematic, and I don't know what are they doing and what would we do different? That was the takeaway I had from, that was the one
I
thing I
think there's something
recall.
to be said for like how engaged your community is, and I feel like because Brisbane is so small,
Hmm.
our citizens are a lot more engaged because they know that their comments can have a big impact versus maybe like
Right.
South City, people just,
I
you know,
mean,
maybe care as much.
Brisbane people may be used to it, so I would hope that we would have at least 200 for a community of our
would.
size.
Yeah.
And again, also, the thing that the other thing also is that while they don't have a formal plan, the projects were kind of similar to Belmont. They were utility boxes. They have like these are once a year art gallery, art showing, really doesn't cost them anything, but it engages the community with art. So I thought that was an interesting thing, or project that they collaborated with Skyline that they said. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way of bringing art, but maybe not like using, and so I think if they're going to use any significant budget, it seems like you really want a master plan to guide you in that. So, and then I agree with Madison, the Berkeley one seemed like the same person's name came up, Goldstein, I think, that one came up, yeah, Barbara Goldstein.
Pasadena and Berkeley.
And so
They're engaged. Berkeley's engaged.
that was, yeah, Berkeley and Pasadena. Oh,
Pasadena.
her name came up as well, actually in Pasadena as well. They said really liked her.
Oh.
And they had focus groups, in-person meeting. They educated people about public art. They highly recommended Barbara Goldstein. They said, make the document usable. And I think that was the other thing that somebody else said. I forgot what the word was. Don't make it
Oh, look,
I forgot what it was.
Belmont is Barbara
Was it
Goldstein
techie?
also.
Okay,
That was
so,
Belmont. That's what I thought.
I think I found that the document for San Diego was really overwhelming. It was huge. It was
Yeah.
too much and almost not
big town.
usable. Now, I mean, I understand it's a city of probably 800,000 or to 1,000,000. I mean, it's a huge city. But it was, I think when it's too in-depth, then it's very complicated. You want to make it easier for developer to use, for our committee, for other projects, that it's not so complicated that you don't understand it. So, and it has to be user-friendly.
Yeah, it has to be user friendly, so if you want engagement, people can quickly understand it,
Right.
get the sense of it so that they can engage as opposed to saying, I'm not reading 110 pages.
Well, it's interesting that 3 out of the 4 people, not including South City, right? But of all the master plans we looked at initially that were completed, 3 out of the 4 that we interviewed or worked with Barbara Goldstein, and we didn't really like San Diego's, but we decided to choose them because they were to just get that contrast. So I think that's very interesting. I guess maybe she should be on the list.
We should reach out to her.
Nice, concise. I think.
She got a novel.
I have her contact. Yeah.
It seems like her style maybe
I
resonates.
think she was recommended by a friend of mine too.
Yeah.
Oh.
She does a lot locally in the Bay
Okay,
Area.
well,
She's
that's
very
important.
specific to
Do
Bay
you know Ray
Area.
Beldner? He
Yeah.
used to live in town. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think he recommended her
Oh, okay.
personally.
All right, so let's just go around the room again. Do you have more input? Any more thoughts that have come to your mind, Lisa, since we've been discussing?
No, I'm
any
just
points or-
sorry, I missed all the big presentations, but I feel like, we're on the right track and I like the direction we're going in.
Karen?
Really have a lot more input. I think everybody has said how I feel. I think, yes, we're on the right track. If 3 of the 4 people are Barbara Goldstein, I guess we need to talk to her. But keep an open mind for the others.
Totally.
And the KISS principle has got to reign supreme throughout this. If we don't make it simple, we're never going to succeed.
Right.
And it doesn't need to be complicated. So people can say, look at this fabulous document. It can be super straightforward.
Yeah. Camille?
I agree. I think that, that we should get the RFP out, make sure we invite Barbara Goldstein, although she probably will get it and
Yeah.
apply. It seems as though this is what she does a lot of. And keep it simple and clear in ways for people to be able to understand and be able to have input that's concise and move forward.
May I just add one more
Yeah.
thing to that? I think we tend quite often to complicate things that don't need to be complicated. And I think some people want to over intellectualize just about anything we do. And it really doesn't need to be that way. You know?
I think the more simple and open, then it allows people to be more engaged with a way of, whether it's a question or an idea. If you get too dense with something, kind of get overwhelmed.
You squish the creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and
We are the arts.
we don't expect every person to be a professional art critic either.
Right.
You know, I don't want to learn to be a professional art critic. I want to help this process.
But I think here's the thing is that the art is going to be enjoyed and consumed by the average person who isn't an art critic either. Right, and so,
Good point.
if to somebody who that's their world and they, really know how to critically look at art, will see something and the average citizen, is probably just gonna go off. Is this, how aesthetically pleasing is this? And that sort of thing. So I think it's important to consider, like, who are we making art? Who are we making art for? And who's going to be engaging with this? And when you consider your audience, that's, I think, how you create pieces that resonate. If we were creating a piece that we hope would end up in a museum, right? That might be totally different than something that's going to live in the park. So.
At the same time, I hesitate. I say at the same time, that shouldn't be that we don't challenge ourselves.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Just want to put that in there.
I like that.
Okay, Tom?
I think the exercise was really was lovely. And I feel like we have the confidence to actually work through a professional. We can actually work with them and have the knowledge and confidence from what we've learned from this exercise to actually speak clearly to them and let them know what we want and what we didn't like. So I think it's great. If everyone else feels the same, I guess it's a question. Does everyone else feel like we have enough
Well,
knowledge to
Absolutely.
communicate with that person?
Yeah.
One of the things I that I noticed in the South City, their timeline is, they drafted and reviewed RFPs, and that looks like a 4-month process that they worked on it.
Drafted it or reviewed
Draft and
other-
review, and then they had a call for entry in September.
But I think all that
So-
is part of their.
Scheduling of time.
Well, partly scheduling, but also
I don't know,
the
maybe it
research
was
like
a
us.
couple meetings,
you know,
yeah,
we've been
so I
doing
don't
this
know.
research the whole time and getting it.
I don't know, there was
Maybe
something,
we save some money.
there was something before that. There was something that was in so I don't know if
So,
you,
That's not a call. Well,
Well, maybe we did a lot of work ahead of time.
I mean, are we just having Noreen just draft the RFP? What do we want to that's my question.
Well,
Where do you
I
want
mean,
to
we can
go?
move to item D, but before we do that, about how we do that, I see that, Ms. Padilla joined us, and I'd like to let her off the hook and go through the AB 2449. Is that okay? And then we can jump
Yes,
to
but now
item
I
D
don't
about
see her
how
up
we
there.
move
She's
forward.
there. She's
She's there.
Okay, does this require an action item? No, we can just move on to that.
Could you just say, we're gonna jump back to item B now? We'll be formal.
Okay, so at this time, we'll move on back to item B, receive a review of AB 2449 in-person rules beginning March 1st, 2023. Ingrid Diaz, City Clerk.
Mhm. Ingrid, are you there?
You're on
There
mute.
she is.
There she is.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Hello.
Thank you, everybody. Is it my turn now for the presentation?
Yeah.
So just wanted to orient the committee in terms of the new legislative policy, California state law, AB 2449. This is in response to the legal memo that was sent earlier in the year to discuss what's going to be happening in terms of remote public meetings after February 28th, 2023. And the days, that day's almost here. I can't believe how fast 2023 is going. So this is kind of just like a visual presentation of what participation is going to look like for committee members, council members, commissioners from March 1st and onward. So if you just take a look at the table, it talks about like ways of participation. So obviously, the way this table is kind of divided up is there's notes also for members and there's notes for staff members. So one way that a member can participate is by attending the meeting in person. So that they're held in City Hall, 50 Park Place. If a meeting of a legislative body of a local agency lacks a quorum, it does not constitute a meeting under the under the Brown Act. So you have to meet quorum and in order to hold the meeting. Another way that you could choose to do or not participate is just to do an absent no-show. You have to check the city council handbook or committee or commission policy from that resolution number 2013-12 to check the attendance policy. And members and staff can take a look at that. The third thing that members can do is attend the meeting virtually under the new policies, new legislations provision called the Just Clause provision. And this is a provision for childcare or caregiving of a child, parent, grandchild, grandparent, sibling, spouse, or domestic partner, a contagious illness, a need related to physical or mental disability, or travel on business of the local agency. So that member must just notify. So simply notify the legislative body by providing a general description. You have to email the notice to the chair, the city clerk, and the staff lead. And the member provides, like I said, a general description of the circumstances that falls under the just cause provisions. And for staff, one thing to note is you need to have a quorum, an in-person quorum. So the majority of the attendees must be in person. And so, like, let's say for a subcommittee, one remote member, if more than two members in a subcommittee, you may have one person remote and one person in person, like in a subcommittee setting. But if you have more than two members in a subcommittee, the majority of the members must be in person. And then for the staff members, you also have to note that all the votes at this time must be conducted by roll call. And the next provision is called the emergency provision. Now, the emergency provision is not limited. There's no limit to amount of times you could say, but there must be a true emergency, such as a physical or family medical emergency that prevents a member from attending a meeting in person. Again, that request has to be made by email to the chair, city clerk, and staff lead, and provide a general description of the emergency. So this does not need to be more than 2 words. and need not disclose any private, personal, or medical information. So there must be, so this is a request. The first provision for just cause was a notification. This is a request, and the legislative body must consider the request at the earliest possible time. So there should be a standing item on the consent calendar, or in the city council case, it's under roll call, and must approve the request if the member is to be allowed to participate remotely. Again, the whole quorum around, there must be an in-person quorum for meetings, for subcommittee meetings. There, one person has to be in person and one person has to be remote if there's a 2-member subcommittee. Or if there's more than 2 members in the subcommittee, the majority of the members must be in person. The other thing is, again, with this emergency provision, all votes must be conducted by roll call. And the last one is, many of you might be familiar with it. It's the old school Brown Act way. It's a member attending the meeting by teleconferencing, so only audio in Zoom, no video. So the Brown Act allows a member to attend a meeting by teleconference if the member complies with a certain statutory requirements, meaning the teleconference location is accessible to the public and the location is noted on the agenda. So for example, the address of a hotel where the member is staying or the member's home address, the location must be accessible by the public. Again, you have to contact the city clerk for all the provisions, because you have to post agendas on your on the location where you're holding the public meeting. So for the staff, you must post the location where the member will be on the agenda, and all votes again must be conducted by roll call. There's a lot of FAQs when I've been doing these presentations, so I collected some of them to kind of go through them, and so everybody's on the same page. Are these the same procedures for attending subcommittee meetings? And the simple answer is yes, because the requirements of the Brown Act applies to legislative bodies of local governmental agencies. So the term legislative body is defined to include the governing body of a local agency, any commission, committee, board, or other body of the local agency, whether permanent or temporary. This includes standing subcommittee meetings, but not ad hoc subcommittees. Ad hoc subcommittees are temporary, that is, they have defined purpose and a time frame to accomplish that purpose, and are not considered legislative bodies. As such, ad hoc committees may but are not required to comply with all of the provisions of the Brown Act. Secondly, what happens if there are technical difficulties during the legislative body meetings? So as long as there's interactive audio, as long as that is maintained, the meeting may continue and the legislative body may vote on an item. So that means even when the live stream and or cable channel is down, as long as there's interactive audio in the Zoom. So if there's no longer interactive video or audio, for example, the Zoom is no longer working, the legislative body may vote on an item, may not vote on an item, but they could still continue discussing that item. So let's say all the technical difficulties have been solved, then that means the interactive video and audio becomes active, and the legislative body must allow more public comment on that item before taking action on that item. So there's that extra step once all the technical difficulties have been solved. Third question is, what if the legislative body has a need to do a site visit at a location not at the community meeting room? So this question came up during OSAC because they do a lot of site visits also with habitats and things like that. So when meetings are held at an outdoor location, the body must first meet at its regular meeting place and then proceed to the outdoor location. So as a practical matter, a member of the public could not attend that remotely. So accordingly, the agendas for those meetings should be clear that the meetings will not be conducted in a hybrid fashion. Fourthly, for teleconference, do I really need to post the agenda on the front door or hotel room door or cooler at the beach where I'm taking the conference call? So yes, the answer is yes. The legislature has never been willing as a body to change this Brown Act provision or to ask for a narrow interpretation by the FPPC or the courts. So if members of the legislative body are not attending but are participating, they must follow the law and post the agenda. And apparently someone did do that, put the agenda on the cooler at the beach where they're taking the call. And lastly, what level of detail is required to be shared when participating in a meeting under the medical exception of the AB 2449 provision? Are we expected to share personal health information? So people were really concerned about privacy and, sharing like their medical history or something like that. But when a commissioner cannot attend a meeting in person, but has a valid medical reason that allows them to participate remotely, the person must provide a general explanation, limited to 20 words. So for example, I am ill and my doctor has advised me not to leave the house until I'm better, or I had a medical procedure and I'm not able to travel at the moment. Explanations do not have to disclose your actual medical condition nor your specific treatment. The legal team wants to do kind of all hands on deck workshop or special meeting to discuss everything around 2449 sometime in April. So we hope to, as I think a lot of the cities and municipalities are just slowly learning what AB 2449 will mean. So they want us to kind of regroup back in April to discuss more of these issues that arise. But the other positive thing is that like subcommittees, for example, are considered another legislative body. So you're allowed for 2 just cause provisions, for each subcommittee that you belong to, and then for the larger body. So at least there was clarity around that because people were like, am I only allowed to do 2 just cause for the whole year? Or how does that work? So as long as you know that you're allowed 2 just cause provisions per legislative body, so per subcommittee, per large group committee group meeting. Any questions around this? Let's see if I can see.
I think we're fine. Thank you.
All right, so happy hybrid meetings to all of us.
Okay.
It's good news.
Thanks, Ingrid.
Oh my
Thank
gosh,
you
so
so
we'll
much.
see how this all falls out, it falls through, and we'll again regroup again in April with the legal team to kind of discuss how this is going for the city of Brisbane.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ingrid. All right, at this time,
Technology.
we'll move on to item D. Did D require a motion at all or no?
I don't think so.
Okay, so we'll move on to item D, determine next steps towards framing an RFP. So,
Well, at a past meeting, there was request to have staff pull up from other RFPs, like say from South City or San Francisco, or maybe see if we can get Belmont's, RFP. And then that can help us create the bones of the RFP.
Yeah, I think kind of piecing together the core components from each of those to establish a framework, and then I can bring that back to the next meeting and we can kind of plug and play what we.
Well, they all said they were willing to share anything we wanted, so.
What would be interesting is if we had a few examples of RFPs from other cities, and then a sample of what has been gathered for the present RFP that we would be considering. So that we could compare and have some basic understanding. Does that make sense?
are you talking about ours? Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Because I think we should need to have ours with all the others. Is that?
that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Yeah,
okay.
so that we can see it side by side.
We should have a discussion about budget too at that time, I think, so we know
Right.
we're gonna have to go that's gonna have to be included.
Yeah,
In the RFP, right, and we can discuss
yeah,
that too.
and I think
And-
most of them are around the 30,000. That's not to say we can't add an additional 5 or 10 for some extra
Right.
public
whatever.
participation, some extra
South City was-
push, something like that, you know, that's some ideas.
I don't know about that.
Oh.
Belmont's was 25,000 like 2 years ago. Who knows what San Diego's was and.
So
who
it may
knows-
be.
No,
important-
South Cities was 100,000.
Yeah, 100, they budgeted 100 and
It-
they're using
I think
about
it's
80. But I wouldn't say that it would be 30,000.
But I thought that
because-
100,000 included
That-
personnel.
That included personnel. I
That
think
included
everyone's just the
personnel.
RFP itself. I don't
I
think
think
we're
it was
around
the
the 30,000.
consultant. I think it's what they, I believe it's what that was the budget that I recall.
Well, let's check.
Well, we'll
But
look
you
it
know
up.
What else would
We'll find
happen if
out.
it's possible is
I remember
if we could
too.
get what some have paid in the general area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just-
Yep.
Just for a baseline.
Yeah, I meet monthly with the director's group from San Mateo County, so that's an
we can get-
easy
yeah.
email out to that group and get their budgets for all of their RFPs, so
There are
I can bring
fees
that
for
back.
that, but
Yep.
and if it includes someone on their staff, then we need to take that out of what that cost is. Does that make?
Yeah.
And also, if they didn't do what we've done a lot of research and planning, maybe that'll save us some money as well.
Well,
Who knows?
we're asking them to write.
But I do have the note here. It says the
And-
We've
budget,
done a lot of work.
budget is 80,000 for the consultant services. And they budgeted 100,000
Oh.
for any extra in case there were unforeseen expenses.
Contingency.
So you can confirm that with.
I mean, that's
Rebecca.
about right. That's
Yeah.
like how much consultants cost.
Yeah.
Especially if you want an extensive community outreach with
Yes.
multiple
Right,
sessions
absolutely.
and multiple iterations and drafts and things
I
like
agree.
that,
No,
then
I
that's
was
how
just-
much that
For
costs.
some reason, I thought it was a portion of her salary.
No, this Ursi and Irwin, I have 72,000 annual budget for cultural arts program for South City. And I also have 50,000, so I don't know if 150 too, I don't know if that's her, I don't know her salary.
Right.
But that's was
Alright.
for cultural
Thank
arts,
you.
so that's the clarification on that. So I just, only reason I'm saying that is because I would hate to throw a number so small.
Yeah.
That we then end up with an insufficient document, and here we go again, we have a
Right.
document that's not even gonna help us. I would rather. Try to figure out a really appropriate budget to get a really good document and a really good company as the foundation. Because
Yes.
that's the most important thing. Without this foundation and framework, we're back to maybe,
Yeah.
trying to do these projects and not really having a good guideline,
Or
so.
the other thing is what we've already run into is that you just don't get any applicants. You
Right.
don't get
Well-
anyone who applies.
Right, and that could have been the problem with the park too, so that's the closest number I have. I thought Belmont's was awfully low at 25. And it may, I don't know, I'm sure they started, because I think when they finally started, COVID had hit, so they'd already budgeted that, but that seems a little ridiculous. We do have inflation and all this going on.
For sure.
So that was probably, they probably budgeted that in 2019. And,
Mhm.
2020 was everything, the whole world changed.
Yeah, so, the
So,
direction then would be for staff is to bring back other cities' RFPs and their budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
well,
Can I
you
ask-
have to adjust for, what their budget
course,
was. If it
yes,
was 10 years ago, then we have to figure that out. Go ahead,
But
Lisa.
can I have some of those figures and that information ahead of time so I can kind of review it rather than showing up and having it here?
Well, I post everything the Friday
Right.
before.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
That's just what I need. I just envisioned us all showing up and it being here and I need
Oh, no.
time to
No,
kind
no,
of
we'll
look
have
at it.
everything.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
Well, also, I mean, if like the committee is interested in inviting Barbara Goldstein to apply. And, this is something that she does regularly, then her price is, it could be similar to what other people charge as well. So you have a relationship with Belmont.
Yep.
I guess theirs was 25, but it seems like Berkeley might, I don't know if you.
It's so much bigger.
If you can call over there or
For population.
Pasadena.
Don't you think? I mean, if for project. it's-
Berkeley, Belmont was $25,000 on my notes, and it took 9 to 10 months their,
They
their
didn't have any
process.
money either. They had no budget.
Yeah, it's probably pretty small, because then the other people have said it's taken at least a year to 2 years to create the RFP, so.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, the master plan, so yeah, maybe it's a little skewed. So I guess we would need the robustness of their RFP along with their costs that they spent to be able to really compare apples.
And I think everybody should think about, once we decide on the RFP, how long we think this is gonna take, to be quite honest. I mean, I think that's an important portion. When I hear, 10 years, that ain't gonna work. I mean.
Wait a minute, 10 years? No,
But
No,
I
no.
mean,
She just don't know.
I'm just
Okay.
saying, no, but some of them have said it has taken a long time, and I think that as a committee, we need to decide in our RFP, when we're looking at people, what their timeline is. So that we hit the road running.
well, I mean, we could see it here with the projection, which I thought was really great with South
Yeah.
City, is that they have, the applicants, this is the
They did
applicants
theirs fast.
review. Okay, then they do the top two, and then they have reference checks, and they award the contract, and then they're doing the research, and then community engagement, and then, so there has been a whole process from when they started reviewing and drafting the RFPs, which was May of 2021. And here they are now in community engagement, synthesis and plan outline, that's till
They're
today.
doing that right now.
So,
She said by May, she thought they would have it completed.
yeah, Belmont was 9, what did I say, 9, 10 months on Belmont?
Yeah.
Paste that thing.
Something like that.
Rinse and repeat.
So South Cities is almost 2 years, 2021, and we're 2023. And they're right in the middle of it right now.
But I mean,
It's great that-
we could still have small projects, we could do small sculptures in the back area of the park that we had looked at before. We don't need a full consultant overload, we can do
We can do
small
some small
things,
projects, for sure.
So that'd be lovely.
I would love to do a bench.
Ooh, benches.
I could see benches placed in place. In the fantasy, I think. Is that
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
Native
so it looks like, so next meeting we'll have some RFPs and we'll have ours as well. And then everybody can look at that and
We can get involved.
It's very exciting.
And no fear.
No fear.
We are going to make more mistakes. No fear. And no fear of the bullies who like to point out mistakes. Please, everybody.
do we have beer?
No fear in kids.
Okay.
You're looking at the wrong.
Yeah,
Also, is it possible, I don't know if I could bring to get an overview of the subcommittee you're on, which I have not gone to.
Oh,
But no, not for our next agenda.
we could. I
Why can't
wasn't
we
there
get-
the last one,
No, but whatever you know so far.
which is kind of what everybody else knows. But I'm happy to.
So maybe, because it's not on the agenda, so maybe,
oh.
That would be great.
Oh, to talk about what Sierra Point.
Yeah.
right.
That is on our agenda on
Coming to
Thursday night.
council on
so
Thursday.
It's coming. to
Why don't we wait,
Thursday.
why don't we wait until
Yeah.
we see what happens on Thursday?
Right, I was gonna say,
Oh,
all
it
I
might
did was
change.
a tour. Well,
So
oh,
why don't we put that on?
I just went on a tour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
Okay,
right.
so our next meeting is March 20th.
we gotta go to comment. No, we gotta go to public comment.
Yes.
So at this time, do we have any public comment?
Check my email. Don't have any emails or messages. And nobody who's in the Zoom is raised their hand, so I think we are okay.
Okay, so then, our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, March 20th.
So from here on out, it will be the third Monday of every month at 4:30. If there's a holiday, then the meeting prior, we will decide on either doing the Monday before or the Monday after to try to stay within rhythm. or-
Thank you for
or
Monday.
cancel.
I can do it remotely, but.
Yeah.
I can't be, I'm traveling.
Okay, will be the first one.
Oh, yeah, is that into the criteria?
It will,
Oh.
because I will.
Really?
I have a
To the consent calendar.
Get to a year?
for this fifth-
On this committee.
on this
Oh my
committee.
gosh.
Ha, ha, ha.
Well,
Uh,
it's gonna happen.
If it's traveling, you
It is travel
Yeah,
You
Business.
Oh,
for
you
business.
just post, you can only do one.
The FAQ is getting longer.
Yeah, you have to post the agenda wherever you are.
That's
Yeah,
okay, I can do that.
On the airplane.
Airplane, yeah.
Oh, no, I will.
No, I'll be in LA. It's just for business, so I'll be there. I'll be able to get on Zoom and just be there.
And just a real quick comment about the benches. When we visited Chico State, for Avalon, the city of Chico has, a whole bench program. All of them are different.
Oh,
Yeah,
That might, I wonder,
I,
so I'm gonna make a note to
it's just
see.
a fantasy I want to throw in the
Let's
bio.
have
Some was like
have a
very
field
like
trip, me and you.
sculpturesque. one
Okay,
was
I'll go on a
like
field trip with her.
Go on a field trip.
One was painted, one was
Great.
graffiti.
Yeah,
Yeah, we go-
metal.
Metal.
To your surprise art idea.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
Sit here.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so at this time, we'll move to adjourn the meeting
Okay.
at 5:26.
5:26.
Congratulations.
Like.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for
Thank you.
joining. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then regardless,